Merry met, virtual traveller, and welcome to Stories of the Sun, a limited episode podcast created as a companion to the book Stories of the Sun, published by the History Press and written by me, Dawn Nelson, an author and professional storyteller. The idea for this book began when I challenged myself to get up once a month over the year to watch the sunrise in order to reconnect with the sun and its stories. Throughout the 8 episodes, I will include some snippets of audio that I recorded especially for this podcast. This episode explores the vernal equinox and celebrates the return of long sunny days. Grab yourself a cuppa, find a comfy spot, and come with me now to my sit spot on the hill. I'm out in astronomical twilight, so it's about 6:10. Civil twilight doesn't start until about past. There's still a thick frost on the cars. A few of the birds are singing, but as it's February, not as many as later in the year, and the moon is just setting behind the houses on the other side of the street. You can probably hear early morning planes going by quite low. I'm about to start walking down the street to reach my sit spot. About 1 or 2 degrees, and I can just about see my breath on the morning air. The security lights come on as I walk past, and some people's porch lights are still on. I can see more than well enough without the light of a torch, thanks to the clear morning and the full moon. I'm coming up to the middle of the village. The lights of the shop are on. And little red dots from car alarms flash. And some of the last stars are still in the sky, and I can hear the rooks in the rookery starting to call to me. The moon's quite low in the sky. It's like a bright round 10-pence piece. The birds are starting to wake up. This is a busier sunrise than those of the summer because it happens a bit later. So this time of the morning there's quite a few people around. Deliveries, people getting back from night shifts, people walking the dog. There's plenty of activity. Spring is here, announcing itself like Botticelli's Primavera, with dancing women, Venus presiding with arrow-toting angels, scantily clad nymphs fleeing the cold wind, and jaunty youths, aka the god Mercury, unfazed by the naked women surrounding them, and instead turning to pick oranges. I was lucky enough, many years ago, to visit the Uffizi Art Gallery in Florence and see this painting in the flesh, and it is glorious. The March sunrise is like the dancing naked women of Botticelli's famous painting, for the most part ignored, despite being extraordinarily beautiful, literally outshining all other features on the landscape. She is not shy nor apologetic, she just is, undeniably being, right there, every day. We may go about our daily lives nonchalantly picking oranges, but we cannot refute the fact that without her there would be no oranges. I know, I can hear you saying it. Dawn, with today's modern technology, oranges can be grown in a synthetic environment. And yeah, sure they can. But if we do that, are they really oranges? But of course, this isn't actually about oranges, as delicious as they are. This is about our largest star, 150 million kilometres away. That's approximately 108 times the diameter of Earth. 108 is found to be a sacred number in several cultures and can be seen in the 108 Rudraksha beads on a mala, also known as a prayer necklace. It's also the atomic number of hassium, an unstable radioactive chemical element. Sacred and unstable is probably a good way to describe the burning ball of fire that our planet circles. The sun is halfway through its life, but it's not buying itself a Ferrari or taking up crocheting dog jackets. Instead, we are the ones having the midlife crisis. Balance is required of us, and we must strive to create that for our future. When writing to his son Edward in 1930, Einstein said, "Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving." I know we need a fundamental change in policy and consumer trends in order for this change to be effected, and for the bicycle to keep moving, but we can at least try and steer the bicycle in the right direction with our actions. I believe reconnecting with our biophilic cells and the nature and heritage that surrounds us can help us to do this, and this is the reason I wrote Stories of the Sun. It's also the fundamental driving force between a lot of my work with stories and folklore. March holds the vernal equinox. Vernal as in spring, and equinox as in the Latin equus, as in equal, and nox, night. It's to do with the Earth's tilt, and the equinox is the point where the Earth is tilted in such a way that during its orbit of the Sun crosses the equator from south to north, and this means that we have approximately equal night and day. The vernal equinox is usually celebrated between the 21st and the 23rd of March. But this year, here on the South Downs of the UK, equal night and day occurs on the 17th, with sunrise at 6:14 a.m, and sunset at 6:14 p.m. At this time, the sun rises directly east, and it rises surprisingly quickly, as you will discover in the sunrise audio as you listen through the episodes. From this point onwards, the light will increase until the solstice in June. Our ability to make use of this extra light is greatly increased by the clocks changing. And although I do not appreciate March's lost hour, I do appreciate the lighter evenings. In even the most reticent of gardeners, March stirs in us a need to plant seeds. If you are compelled to turn the soil and plant, a great way to bring the sun inside is to plant nasturtiums on your windowsill or in a crocheted hanging planter. They are easy to grow and create beautiful trailing swathes of sunshine yellow, red and orange, and the flowers can even be eaten in salads for a punchy, peppery flavour, akin to rocket leaves. With the fallen branches that the storms of February brought, a fire pit in the garden is another great way to celebrate the March equinox and the fiery fury of the sun. And finally, on the equinox, why not watch the sunrise and the sunset, either from a hill close to you, your garden, or simply the kitchen window? You don't have to be able to see the sun to know she is there. Over the next 7 episodes, my sunrise audio journal will unfold. I will look at the chroniclers, who brought us some of the stories, stand still for the solstice, discover the rituals associated with greeting the sun, dance in the liminal spaces, explore the need for the dark as well as the light, and finally, take a look at what didn't make it into the book. If you're interested in the science behind the sun and the route we take around it each year, take a little look at the January chapter of the book, and the March chapter of the book will help you to discover how we have used the sun to tell the time over millennia. Thanks for joining me for this episode. As always, reviews are enormously helpful. So if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave me a review either on Apple iTunes or via my Facebook. Both are very welcome and really help these stories to travel out into the world and connect with new souls. Stories of the Sun is now available to buy in bookshops. And for more folklore and stories, you can subscribe to my Substack newsletter. Just hop over to the Substack site and search for Cerridwen's Cauldron, or use the link in the show notes. You can upgrade to paid for just £5 a month for an extra dose of wild storytelling to your inbox, which includes podcast extras for Stories from Lore, my other podcast, and Stories of the Sun. Signing up as a paid or free subscriber is much appreciated and helps to support the podcasts and my work with folklore and story. Podcast extras for Stories of the Sun include a full, uninterrupted version of the audio for the sunrise featured at the beginning of this podcast, behind the scenes, journaling activities, and extra stories. You can find me on Instagram as @dd_storyteller, on Facebook as DD Storyteller, and via Substack as Cerridwen's Cauldron. I hope to see you there, as I'd love to tell you another story. I'll see you next time. Toodle pip.